If you find somebody who earns their IFBB Pro card in their first year of competing, chances are they're doing something right. And if in the early stages of their pro career, they start very quickly racking up top 5 finishes in women's physique and eventually outgrow the women's physique category and transfer over to women's bodybuilding and then win a show there, chances are they're doing more than a few things right. Today, that person is Sherry Priami, who is on the verge of competing in the Rising Phoenix women's bodybuilding show in the Arizona Pro, and also is just a few more weeks out from competing in the Miss Olympia. So we sit down for a pretty wide-ranging conversation here, and I really want to dig in on the big question. What are you doing? What are you doing right so that I can copy some of it? And so we do a little bit of a lightning round from there. We go over her competitive history, balancing that with a professional career as well. Talk about her history, how she got started, where she sees this going as well. Very wide-ranging conversation with a very cool person. So I had a great time chatting with her. Certainly if you're watching this on YouTube, you can hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, do all the things that you would do there if you're listening to the audio-only version of this podcast. By all means, share it, tag me, please leave a review, whatever you want to do. And also you can tag me in anything that you share on Instagram. I'm at Darren_star. You can also check out my website at 5starphysique.com for all of the offerings that I have, coaching, workout programs. So without further ado, I bring you my conversation now with Sherry Priami. All right, Sherry Priami, welcome to the Drop Set. It is great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So this is super cool. So you are how far out now from the Rising Phoenix?
This coming Saturday will be 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. All right. I wasn't sure if we were past the 2-week threshold. And it is a Saturday show also?
Today's Friday, so tomorrow is 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, I know, right? I mean, you're 2 weeks out. You have an excuse for not knowing what day it is or what time it is
Right.
or where you're at any given moment. I should know. So, what's on the table for you after that?
Then we have 5 weeks until the Olympia.
I was wondering if you were doing both. Okay, cool.
Yes.
So, here's the question that I have. And before we started here, I did a little bit of research because this is one thing that's always bugged me. So this is the Wings of Strength Rising Phoenix, which is really like, it's the Arizona Pro, right?
Right.
And as I understand it, Wings of Strength is just a promotions company, correct?
So the story behind the Wings of Strength show, or the Rising Phoenix, is that in 2012, the Olympia got rid of women's bodybuilding. So we were no longer allowed to compete there. Jake Woods developed Wings of Strength organization and promoted women's bodybuilding so that we would still have a platform in order to compete.
So that was Jake's creation then?
Yes.
Okay.
So he came up with the Rising Phoenix, and that allowed women's bodybuilding to have a world championship. So that way, we could still be able to compete and win top prizes and things like that. So it wasn't until 2020 that women's bodybuilding, I think, came back to the Olympia.
20 or 21, I can't remember myself, but
yeah. So it's been relatively recent.
Yeah.
So whether he continues to do the Rising Phoenix, now that we're back at the Olympia, I don't know long term, but it's held, as one of the prestigious shows for our division. It's equally as important as the Olympia to us. The prizes are more so than the Olympia.
I mean, they're pumping some money into that.
Yeah, I mean, the winner gets $50,000 at both shows, but we also can win a car at the Rising Phoenix. Nice. And it's not a cheap car; it's always a really nice car.
Yeah.
And the subsequent prizes are equally, given out. They cover all expenses for us: hair, makeup, tanning, hotel, flights, per diem, more than the Olympia does for us. So it's an honor to be able to be selected. You do have to be invited. You don't just get to show up and do the Rising Phoenix.
That was my next question. It's not a qualification. You actually have to get an invitation for that.
That is correct. but it is a qualification for the Olympia still. So if someone who isn't already qualified for the Olympia wins, then you get your ticket. But
That is a rough path to qualify for the Olympia. Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to hold out for the Arizona Pro when you've got all these
yeah,
people who have been invited. Like that's a last ditch effort, I think.
right. And I mean, Andrea Shaw is obviously showing up because she can get paid, so she's doing that show.
Yeah.
The chances of you getting a qualification for the Olympia, yeah, is pretty slim. But just to be able to be on stage, with the top bodybuilders, currently, is an honor, and a lot of people say that it kind of sets you up to know who's going to place where at the Olympia. I don't necessarily agree with that.
A lot can
There's
happen in
20
5
girls
weeks.
doing the rising. Yeah, for example, I mean, just because it's on the top of my head, Mayla Ash placed second at Rising Phoenix last year, but she did not place in the top 5 at the Olympia. So you just never know how it's going to go. I've never done it. I'm excited to do it and just be a part of the whole production and the experience of it. So a warm-up show per se for the Olympia.
Yeah, like a very prestigious warm-up show.
Yeah, yeah.
It is cool. And do you think, I mean, you said you made the point here, like for you and other women bodybuilders, like it's still held at the same level of the Olympia. And is part of that because it was there when the Olympia ditched you?
Right.
I mean, it kind of filled that void and said, hey, you still have a place for us. And so I think there's probably like still some loyalty there as far as how you treat that show.
Absolutely. And like I said, I mean, as a competitor, it's a top-notch treatment all the way around. So it's just, a really cool show to be a part of.
That's awesome. Yeah, the whole Wings of Strength, Rising Phoenix, it's like, until I dug into it, I'm like, I don't understand the relationship between these different words and what is what. So,
Right.
so Rising Phoenix, so the Arizona Pro is a show that has multiple categories, but for women's bodybuilding specifically, that is the Rising Phoenix.
Yes, that category. And the Arizona Pro is an all-women show. So the whole event for the whole weekend is just women only.
Okay.
But yeah, there's the different divisions in the Arizona Pro. And that is a show, the IFBB promotes, and that's part of their organization. Wings of Strength is a promoter for a lot of shows, but I don't necessarily know how that correlates, with the Arizona Pro.
That was the thing that I was really kind of wondering, because it's like, okay, I was trying to wrap my head around this. I'm like, Wings of Strength, okay, is that like a different organization, but they appear to be affiliated with the IFBB, but they are just a promotions company. So it's kind of like, it's like a Gary Udit or a Tim Gardner show. It's just they don't put their names in the show, and Wings of Strength does, as for promotional purposes.
Yes. And I know that they partner a lot, with Tim Gardner and some of the other promoters, and it is a double promotion. You get all the Wings of Strength gear and stuff when you register. Yeah, but I don't really know a lot about the promotion side of the shows and how that all works out. I mean, I do
Well,
know
Sherry, I expect you to be an expert on everything here. So come on, step it up, please.
I'm trying to learn. I'm still a baby in all this.
Speaking of being a baby, I want to play a little bit of "This Is Your Life" here. So don't worry, I don't have any baby pictures of you, at least not in that sense. But I do want to do a screen share here and show you something. So let's do this, and I think this should work. So let me know if you can see that.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you here, and the question is, what the fuck happened here?
The girl on the right ate the girl on the left, right?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Yeah. So for those of you not watching on YouTube, but just listening to the audio version, I have a side-by-side here of Sherry at Teen Collegiate Masters Nationals, and I think this was 2018, correct?
That is correct.
When you run your pro card. And then at the Van Island Showdown, the pro show this last year, was that in May, June? When was that?
That was in April.
April. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, do you recall, like, what's the difference in stage weight that we're looking at here?
Oh, geez. I think probably about 20 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's because 20 pounds, but also like significantly leaner as well.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So the first question I have is,
crazy to look back on that.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that was a productive 5 years.
Yes. I've been working hard consistently.
Yeah, yeah. And so you got your pro card in 2018 in women's physique, and then kind of talk us through how your pro career started out, because you competed in women's physique for a while. How was that experience?
Um, well, my pro debut year was not very successful. Um,
And would that have been 2019? Did you jump right into it, or did you take some time
I,
off
I'm trying to think. Yes, that was 2019. Um,
pre-COVID?
the first show that I did was Tim's show down in Fort Lauderdale, Atlantic Coast,
Hmm.
I think it's called. And I didn't place, came in bottom. My conditioning was not very good. My upper body was conditioned, my lower body wasn't. Um, I think the winner of that show was Sarah, Miss Olympia. Um, so I just I probably wasn't ready to go and do a pro show just yet, but I wanted to. So
Yeah.
my coach got me where he thought I needed to be. And the reason I wasn't as conditioned, that was the year that all the talk and the buzz was that women's physique was supposed to come in softer. We weren't supposed to be hard. We weren't supposed to have striated glutes. We weren't supposed to be, ripped. If you looked at all like the names and descriptions of how women's physique was supposed to be, that was not it.
Hmm.
I tend to get pretty conditioned. So my coach, I think, held me back a little bit. He was trying to bring me with a softer look, and it just did not show well on stage. So
That's
I
the
was,
thing. If you're trying to come in like 5% softer, it's hard for that not to turn into 10 or 15% softer. Like
yeah,
if you're just going to come in like I'm going to come in as hard as nails as I possibly can, like okay, that's pretty easy to hit. Well, I mean it's not easy, but it's not a moving target at that point. It's a
right,
little more defined.
right. So I was pretty upset about my first showing because I wasn't as good as I was even at my when I won my pro card. So I told my coach, I said, this is not to happen again, ever. Like I will show up and be marked off for being over conditioned before I'll get marked off for having soggy glutes again. Like that will not happen again.
If you're going
So
to err on that side.
right, I'd rather be like, she didn't place well. She was too hard, darn. Better than, she's out of shape. So we did the next show I did was a smaller show in Boca. I think it was called the Crystal Cup. And I placed a little bit better. I think I got like 11th in the Open and fourth in Masters. And I liked my look better, but I wasn't satisfied. And I wanted to do, in my mind, a real pro show like the Tampa Pro.
A big one, yeah.
Yeah, you
One
know,
question on those first two: do you feel like that first show was that really just like I didn't bring the conditioning that I should have, or was it also like I needed more time and I was kind of overmatched because I came into this maybe too soon and I should have taken more time to grow first?
I knew that I wasn't going to place, top five. I knew I needed to be a little bit bigger, but I didn't expect to not place at
Right.
all. So, um, and again, I won my pro card my first year competing, so I didn't have a lot of experience.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, you're one of those. We
I'm
hate
one of
you.
those.
We hate you. Everybody now just hit the dislike button on this video.
Yeah.
Everybody hates Sherry.
So, I don't want to say it came easy, but it came quick. It came quick. And I didn't really know what I was up against. When I first started competing, I kept looking at the pros on IG and stuff and comparing myself. And my coach would say, don't look at those. That's the pros. You're not going to look like that. And I thought in my head, well, who am I trying to look like? Like, of
Yeah.
course I'm going to look at the pros. Like, that's what I want to look like. I'm going to keep that in my brain. I'm not going to look at some other NPC chick and try to, base my criteria or my standards on
There's a
that.
difference between being pissed that you're not there now and just being like, that's the target, that's what I'm aiming for, and keeping that image burned into your brain.
Exactly. So, for example, one of the girls that I really looked up to or liked her physique was Danny De Castillo. I think
Hmm.
is how you say her last name. She's from Brazil. I just loved how she looked. She was complete. She was feminine. I love the way she presented herself. So that I was watching her, watching the shows that she did, and kind of striving to have that look. And I knew that I wasn't there yet. I knew that I needed to grow, but you know, you need something to work towards.
Absolutely.
Um, so, you know, back to the Tampa Pro show, I told my coach, like, you know, I just want the experience. Like, I want to say that I did a pro show, like a real pro show. And he told me I wasn't ready. He's like, you're not ready for the Tampa Pro stage. You're not going to do well. You're not, you know, and I'm a little bit older. So I'm lived my life knowing that experiences matter. I don't get so caught up in the placing or, you know, I mean, I do. You know, now I play to win.
It's not unimportant, but it's not the only thing.
But it's not like, well, if I can't be top 5, I'm not doing that show. To me, it was an experience. I want to say I got on the Tampa Pro stage. I want to be up there with the best of the best. I want to see, you know, all these people that, you know, I been looking up to. And I told him, I said, I could throw my back out next year and never compete again. I could, you know, anything could happen to us.
Yeah.
And it, you know, this could be my only opportunity. So he's like, fine, you know, we'll do it. That year there was 43 women's physique competitors in that show. It was the largest ever. And I ended up placing 9th.
Holy crap.
For me, at the time, I was ecstatic. You know, I placed inside the top 10 of 43 girls. I finally got my conditioning down. When I look back at the pictures, I was small. You know, I definitely needed more development, but I was conditioned. So that got me in the top 10. I was able to do my nighttime routine that I had worked so hard on. So for me to end my pro debut season, like, I was completely happy with that.
That's a big progression from a did not place at a relatively small show to 9th at Tampa.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good year.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, and you take your lumps and you just kind of regroup and say, okay, yeah. And like you said, that will not happen again. Okay. And you kind of, you don't get beat down by it, but you use that as like, that's what to avoid. Okay, cool.
Exactly. You learn your lesson and you move on. You know, and again, I didn't get into, I really like bodybuilding. I really like training. I like lifting. I didn't get into this so I can compete, you know. You know, I just said, you know, back to the drawing board, you know, back to work. It wasn't like a big deal for me. And I knew that I had to, you know, work my way up in the ranks and everything. So I was fine with getting back to work. And then we did Tampa the next year. And I ended up placing 3rd in the Open and 1st in Masters. So I was super excited about that.
That's a big step up from 9th to 3rd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ivy won that show that year. And Jeannie Feldman was 2nd. And I was standing neck to neck with 2 Olympians who had already been to the Olympia.
So, if you're going to be 3rd, that's a good 2 to be behind.
Right? So I was happy about that season as well. And that was the year of COVID. So I was also just real proud of myself for even making it all happen. I ended up doing 5 shows that year, which I will never do again. That, you know, we kept coming in the top 5 at all my shows. So the points were racking up. So when they had the point system. And we unfortunately, I missed getting to the Olympia on points by 1 point. But, you know, now that I look back on it, you get so caught up in it, but I'm so glad I didn't get to go, because you're not really the best of the best when you're 3rd, 4th, 2nd at 5 shows in order to accumulate all these points to make it.
And also, like, getting on points, it's almost kind of like, you know, in the legal system, getting off on a technicality. It's like, well, I'm in, but you didn't win a show to really, you know, earn the spot there. Yeah. I mean, it still counts if you're there, but also to go from.
Yeah, I mean, I would have went, you know, but, you know, it's always, you know, reflection on, you know, when you get past that, you know, God's timing for things, I believe, happen the way they're supposed to happen. And I ended up taking 2021 off completely and just grew. I knew that I needed some time, and I knew that, you know, a 6-month off season just wasn't going to cut it. So we worked really hard, and I went to come back to do WPD again in 2022. And I was scheduled to do Chicago Pro. for my first show. And my coach said to me like 2 weeks prior to that, or maybe a month, it was a month before the Chicago Pro. He's like, you've really put on a lot of size. I didn't expect you to gain this much. He said, I'm looking at your physique and I'm thinking about things. He's like, how do you feel about switching to women's bodybuilding? No, like I was a small WPD girl, right? I mean, I took the whole year off so that I could get bigger for WPD. And now you're telling me I need to go to women's bodybuilding. I just wasn't really feeling that.
Do you think in retrospect that he was correct and you were just not seeing yourself fairly at the time?
Well, I mean, the way that it played out, I do know he was correct. Prior to that, though, I had some judges in my ear about it I had met at some posing clinics that were saying, you really should consider, going to this bodybuilding, with your structure and your frame, you need to bring your legs up more. Maybe if you just stop training your upper body and work on your legs, and and I'm like, I just blew that off because I'm like, that's all nonsense. I'm not doing that. I'm not training my upper body. So when he mentioned it, I was like, really? And he said he had talked to a couple judges. He had sent my pictures to them and said, where do you think she fits? And they both agreed that if I'm really looking for an Olympia qualification, I should probably go to women's bodybuilding. So I trusted him. And he said, the Atlanta show is like a couple weeks prior to Chicago. Why don't we give it a try? If it doesn't work out, we can always still stay in WPD for Chicago. So I was willing to give it a go. It was a little stressful. I had to learn these bodybuilding poses and a new routine and everything like in 2 weeks.
They're very different from the physique poses.
It is. It is. And I didn't do so well with my posing. I ended up placing second in women's bodybuilding in Atlanta. And that was to Angela Yo, who's second in the world now. Mm-hmm. No, I got that mixed up. I placed second to Michaela at Atlanta. So I thought to myself, well, damn, if I can get second to Michaela, maybe I am in the right place,
Right.
It was great. And I decided that, let's just keep rolling with this, second is the best I've ever placed, period. So why don't we just try it in Chicago and see how it goes? And we did in Chicago, and I placed second again, that time to Angela Yo. And so I'm like, okay, I guess this is where I belong. This is working for me.
Good call, coach.
Yeah. And then we did Tampa after that, thinking that I was going to win, coming off of 2 second places. And unfortunately, I placed third at that show. He ended up bringing me in a little fuller, trying to make me have more size. And, with that fullness, you lose some conditioning. So I don't think I placed as well because of that. And Chelsea Dion ended up winning that show.
That's like, again, I think about the first time where going from one show to the next, your placing actually dropped, I think.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's always been like steady climb, up,
right.
up.
And it's how it should be, right? I mean, for the most part. So, I was on the fence. We were riding on that point system thing again. And I was fourth in points. So I needed to do another show to try to get, to that third spot. But my daughter was moving out that summer, and I really wanted to spend some time with her. So I shut it down and just said, that's more important to me than trying to push, for another show. So I didn't do that. And I made the conscious decision as soon as we got back to, planning for the next season, that I was so close at all 3 of those shows that I was going to jump in the very first show of 2023. So I took from August until April to prepare for that. And, there was some strategy behind that. I knew that the show that I was choosing, that, Vancouver Island Showdown, the year prior, there was only one women's bodybuilder in it. So,
Eva.
Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself, I knew there'd probably be more, but I didn't think it'd be a big show. And I knew that the Olympians were not going to be competing. They had just finished the Olympia in December. So they weren't going to be ready for an April show. And it's not, some people are like, oh, well, don't you think you took the easy route? I'm like, trying to get to the Olympia, I don't think there's an easy route. I think you need to strategize,
Yeah.
Waiting until the very last show of the season when everybody else is in it, like, that's not too smart.
No, like waiting for Arizona to get your
Right,
qualification there. Should I do that? I mean,
right. And so I knew even if I won that show in, in April, that I wasn't going to be ready for the Olympia, but I had that time to prepare then. So it paid off. I mean,
it did. So that I mean, I assume you're in Florida just based on your show
yeah,
selection for all this stuff. So that's about
right.
as far away from home as you can get and still stay in the Western Hemisphere.
It was. It was. Yes, I had not ever traveled that far for a show. It was all kind of flight delays and ridiculousness trying to get there and get home, but it was worth it. It was absolutely the best show I've ever done. The promoters, Andrew and Corey, really are just like top notch promoters. They treat the athletes so well. They, almost like you felt like a celebrity there. It was really
Yeah.
great. So just the whole experience. The area is beautiful. The people there are so friendly. I got to go whale watching when I was there. Um, it was just overall, I couldn't have asked for a better show. So
That's
it was
cool. That's
definitely worth
cool.
going. And if there's an opportunity to travel and do that again, I would.
Yeah. And so that was one of my questions as far as why pick that show because and it makes sense. Like earlier in the calendar year, if you're looking to play the point system or just having as many opportunities as you can to hit shows in a fairly concentrated window to get that qualification, it makes sense to start early. And if you weren't
Right.
doing the Olympia the year before, you're fresh, you're ready for a prep. Yeah. I mean that's just good strategy right there.
Yeah. So like I said, it for once it paid off.
Yeah. Well, and I know like last year, you said there was one competitor that was Eva Montgomery and she won that show being the only competitor in it and it's like she needs some competition up there because there
Yeah.
could have been 8 to 10 up there and she still probably would have won it depending on who they were. Like it's not like that was okay, she won by default. She
Right.
did, but like she brought a pro level package as well.
Yeah.
And like looking at the photos here like this is a pro level package. You had some competition.
Yeah.
But
There was
I mean,
quite a few girls. And Julia, I think her last name is pronounced Whitesell.
mhm.
She was in second, who I was sort of going head to head with. And she ended up with an Olympia qualification this year as well. So I felt good about winning that show and the competitors that were there. I think there was 8 of us. Um, so yeah, it wasn't like I just won it by default or anything like that.
I have a question here that just came up. Did anyone approach you about doing that show, or was that just your idea, you and your coach?
I was going to do the first show no matter where it was or who was promoting it. That was
Okay. I'm just curious if it went from just one competitor last year and then there were 8 this year. I'm wondering if the promoters like might have reached out to some people and said, "Hey, you should do this," and kind of talk up their show, or if that's something that happens.
Yeah, no one reached out to me or anything.
Okay. We're not
I
trying to
don't
push
know.
not trying to push conspiracy theories here or anything.
I don't know if maybe some of the other girls were like, only one chick did this show last year, so
I think that's probably part of it. Yeah, like, hey,
yeah,
this some low hanging fruit here. Let's get it.
exactly. And well, now and that was the first year I think they had women's bodybuilding, so maybe just people weren't familiar with the show. I mean, I didn't really know about it until I saw that Eva had won it, and I'm like, oh, okay, what's
I'd
this
never
show?
heard of it until last year. So,
Right.
yeah.
So I think it was their first year having it.
So between let's see, what the Tampa was the final show of the previous year. Do I have that correct?
Um,
Of 2022.
yes, Tampa was the last show in 2022.
Okay, 21 was the year you took off, and then spend a lot of time growing, grew into women's bodybuilding, did those 3 shows, Tampa after Tampa, and your third place finish. What was the agenda? Like, if you break down those, and if I really had my act together, I'd have these photos up that we can take a look at. But I'll put them in post production so people can see you at Tampa. So if you have those seared into your brain, what was the agenda for after that show going into this year?
Just to put overall size on, to be fed more. That was another thing my coach had always sort of, I think my structures, even though I was small, like my bones are bigger. I'm a little bit bigger, and so for women's physique, and so I think he kind of held the food back and didn't feed me as much as he could have, when I was trying to be in WPD. So we agreed that he was really going to push the food, and my training never really changed. I mean, I've always trained whole body and trained hard, and but the judges, their feedback was just, she needs about 10 more pounds, 15 more pounds of stage weight for women's bodybuilding to really do well. So that was the agenda: get as big as I could
You're like,
in
okay,
the
no
time I
problem.
had. Yeah. So we did end up with about 8 pounds up from the previous year. And, you know, I think it was a good stage look. I wasn't as conditioned as I had hoped to be for Vancouver. I wasn't really happy with how I looked on a personal level. I didn't feel like it was my best, but my coach was trying to, keep me on a little bit fuller and on the, larger size.
It's kind of a funny phenomenon how you can win a show and not really be super thrilled with your look.
Yeah, I wasn't that prep for me was really mentally exhausting. Um,
What about it?
there was just some things in my protocol that weren't working well for me, giving me a lot of anxiety, giving me
Mm.
a lot of stress. Um, I didn't feel like I was going to be ready. I had a lot of pressure on me. People kept saying that I was going to win this show, and then I was like, the favorite to win.
Like,
And
stop saying that. Stop. No.
yeah, so that it was just a lot of pressure. And when you're 4 weeks out and people are saying you're going to win and you're looking at yourself and you're like, I'm not ready. 4 weeks out, I should look better than this. I should be more conditioned than this. I was just in my head way more than I should have been or more than I ever have been. Um, because this show, all when I say, I'm doing it for experience, I feel like the other shows were like that for me, or I never really thought that I was going to win just yet. So that pressure wasn't there. This was the first time that I really thought I had a chance and I didn't want to blow it. And
More pressure.
I just felt like it was slipping away. I felt like my coach and I were not thinking the way we used to. The communication was broken down. I just overall wasn't happy. I wasn't, I just wasn't feeling it.
So here's a lesson to everybody out there. Even successful pros can be head cases at times.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I tried to focus on what I could control. Another critique from the year prior was that I needed to work on my posing. Like I said, I didn't really have a lot of time to prep myself for women bodybuilding poses. So like my back lat spread, I couldn't open my lats very well. I just wasn't quite comfortable enough yet in those poses for that season. So I diligently worked posing coaches and made sure that this time around my posing was spot on. And I think that helped. I think that when I look back on it and I compare myself with the other girls, I think my posing was really good. And I think that helped with the win.
Yeah, I mean the presentation that I'm looking at here from Vancouver is like it's pretty stellar. Like I mean clearly like it's hard also if you put a lot of muscle on your frame to then just kind of instinctively know how you're supposed to show it at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it's like
Yeah.
okay, I've added, I had an ex-girlfriend who always just described it as being like, you're just putting more Play-Doh on your frame. Now it's like what do I do with this Play-Doh? It's like I got it, I don't know how to manipulate it quite yet.
Yeah, it takes a little while to figure that out, and then as you get leaner, things change and look different. And so it's constantly a wheels in motion, little tweaks, little, things that you have to be paying attention to bring out your best.
Well, and you mentioned like at 4 weeks out, like not feeling it, and I think it's also like you can really get in your own head with that stuff because somebody else might see you in the gym at 4 weeks out, like hitting a pose between sets, and be like, "Holy crap, what a freak!" And you're looking at yourself and you're like, "I'm flat. I'm just so
Yeah.
flat."
You don't know what you're talking about. Don't
Yeah,
talk to me.
there's a big difference in how it looks versus how it feels.
Yeah. Well, I also I'm terrible at like being on IG and comparing myself. I'm really trying to get better with that and not going down that rabbit hole.
Guilty, guilty.
And I'm looking at other girls and I'm like, she's ready. She looks peeled. Why do I not look ready? I kept saying to my coach, like, I want to be ready early. I want to know that I want that confidence. And it just wasn't happening. Like I said, the communication just wasn't happening.
One thing that I've learned, and I mean you've probably learned this in talking with other competitors as well, is that whoever you're comparing yourself to, whatever they're presenting, they probably feel the same way. Like they're not ready. But look at Sherry. How does she look like that?
Right, right. Or yeah, you hyper focus on their body parts that you don't have. and completely overlook the good stuff you have that they don't. I mean, it's a total head case thing.
Yeah,
So I have gotten a lot better with, when I get close to a show, I don't scroll IG anymore. I'm not digging to see what my competitors are doing or what they look like, because yeah, it
tunnel
really
vision.
makes no difference. It you just have to focus on you. It's so cliche to say, but stay in your lane and bring the best you that you can bring, because that's all that matters. Um, so I'm
I,
getting better.
I think when it comes to that, I mean, it's not a competition, but I think I've got everybody beat. Like, I am so bad at that comparison game. I literally, aside from some of my clients, I don't follow any guys on Instagram, because if they show up in my feed, it's just that initial reaction where it's like, oh shit, oh no, oh here we go again, oh god, and it's just like so I've learned, rather than be like, I should improve my thought process on this. I'm like, no, just aversion therapy. Just stay away. I'm just
Right.
not going to do it.
Right. And that's pretty much what I have done. I just, I'll maybe make some posts and put some stuff out there from my page, but then I'm off. Like, I'm not trying to look through it. I don't want
That's such a useful skill to learn how to do. It really is.
And there was so many times that I was sweating these girls, and thinking that, I wasn't gonna do as well, and da 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 da. And I get to the show, and like, they don't look the way that they looked on IG at all. Um, I was like that when I switched to bodybuilding. I thought, oh my God, I'm not big enough to be a women's bodybuilder. I'm not going to be able to like hang with these girls. And I got to the check-ins, and I'm like, oh, they're not as big as they looked on, on IG.
And never mind.
Hey, yeah, like maybe I'll be okay. And, a lot of girls that I was worried about didn't place higher than me. So I have learned that that does you absolutely no good.
100%.
It
100%.
just, right. It just raises your cortisol levels and causes you stress. And
And makes it harder to lean out further.
it does. It
Yeah.
does. So this has actually been the best prep I've ever had. I
That's
have,
awesome. That bodes well.
yeah, yeah. Like, maybe because that pressure's off, but I have a new coach this year, and
Who you working with?
Stefan Kinsel. He's out of Austria. Um, he just coached Nathan Asha to, um, in what was it, in Italy. Um, he's Miracle Bears coach, Houston Classic Earths. So yeah, he was recommended to me, and we started working together right after um, the Vancouver show. And it's been a really productive off season with him. He's really focused on training and making sure that, form is correct. And um, he doesn't believe in a lot of volume. It's more, my last coach was lots of reps, lots of volume. This is
Which I mean, clearly work to grow. The concerns that
right.
I have about that is you kind of tank yourself during prep if you're doing too much volume.
Yeah, I was having a lot of joint issues. I was having, just a little bit more exhaustion feeling. I wasn't getting as many rest days as I get now. Um, and now I look back on it, I mean, the intensity of my training just wasn't as intense as it is now. I mean, if you go in now and you do your, a few good warm up sets, and then he's got me doing, very high intensity, 8 to 10 reps for one set. And then my second set is a little lighter, but, 12 to 15 reps. And then that's it. We're done. We move on.
Two good
Versus
hard working sets.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I have been responding really well to that. And so my stress, he has me, I am more conditioned at this juncture than I ever have been in any of my other shows. So that confidence that I have, it's there now. I'm not stressed about, am I going to be ready? I'm not worried about, am I going to, my glutes going to be in? Like, it's there. So I've just, like I said, it's just been a really good prep. My mental state has been a lot calmer than it ever has been. My stress is really low. I'm getting adequate rest. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what I look like on stage this year.
That's awesome. And I got to say, as a coach, like everything that you're saying there makes you a coach's dream because, I mean, clearly hard worker, good genetics, all of that. But also, it's like you get to a point where you're like, I'm a pro. I've done all these pro shows. I've done really well. And then a new coach comes along and is like, I want to do things very differently. And I think the default response of a lot of people is like, well, this is what I've done before and it's gotten me this far. So, eh. And you're like, okay, cool. Let's do
Yeah,
it. Let's
no,
try.
I was ready for a change. I was ready for a new strategy, just a new way of doing things. I've been with my previous coach for ever since the beginning, so 5 years. And I just think it had kind of run its course.
And I mean, I would like to know, like, who is that, because he did some great work and deserves a shout out.
Oh, absolutely. And he's a great coach, and we had a great working relationship. His name is Derek Netcher with Loud Performance Training,
Mhm.
and he's a great coach. He cares about his athletes. He cares about he was trying to do everything he could to make sure that I stayed healthy and kept my femininity. That was very important for me. Um, I just think my expectations kind of outgrew maybe his coaching for me.
And sometimes just getting that
That makes
different
sense.
perspective is useful. I've had clients that I've worked with for years, and they're like, "Hey, you're awesome. Thank you. I just want to, I want to, get in a different pool for a little bit." Cool.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
a good coach knows not to take that personally.
yeah. And and he agreed. He felt like it was time to part ways as well. I really expressed my unhappiness with the Vancouver look and how things went. And I like I said, I'm not really sure what happened. I'm not really sure where the communication breakdown was between us. And it really just doesn't do me any good to like
I mean, it's kind of
dwell
like
on
it.
it.
It's kind of like in marriages. People can just drift apart. I mean,
Yeah,
and having a
yeah,
coach is kind of like a marriage in a way.
yeah. And and sometimes you just need a freshness, a
Yeah.
new look on things, a new perspective. And my new coach is really he's doing that for me. He's giving me that fire that I kind of needed to get back again.
Yeah,
So
and if you're shaking some things up and you feel super confident at this stage in prep, I would say, yeah, it was time to make a change.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Okay, I have a diet question for you, and then I want to hit some rapid fire stuff based on a theme. So,
okay.
um, on the dietary side of things,
Huh?
are you one who what your numbers and your calories are, or it's like coach said eat this, so I just eat that and I don't think about it?
I'm a little bit of both. I mean, if somebody says how many calories are you eating right now, I know. Or if they ask me my macros, I know.
What are your
Um,
macros?
yeah. Well, right now I know my calories because he does more calories. I used to be more macro based. So right now, this week, my off days I'm at about 1600, and my training days I'm around 18.
Okay.
He just lowered it quite a bit. Um, Off season with him, my training days I was up to about 3300, and my off days I was like around 28.
Nothing
So
crazy or
usually,
wild or extreme about that.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. Um, but I follow the plan. I'm not one of those, oh, he said 25 grams of carbs from cream of rice, but I'm going to go ahead and substitute that with this half a bagel, or I don't.
2/3 of a Pop Tart.
Yeah, if he says it's cream of rice, I eat the cream of rice. You know what I mean?
So you write a meal plan, you follow the
But
plan,
the
you're not doing
flexibility,
macro substitutions.
correct. Right. I mean, not during prep, at least. I will, a little bit more in the off season be more flexible with things. But yeah, no, in prep, I follow everything to a T.
Cool. Um, what one other switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about a little bit of gym stuff here. For your training sessions, do you train by yourself with a partner? What are you doing?
I train with my boyfriend. I used to train by myself when I first started. We've been together for about 3.5 years. Um, One of those years, it was a long distance relationship. So I have the last 2 years, I have trained every day with him, which has helped me tremendously.
Does he kind of like know how to
He
push your buttons and get a little bit more out of you when you need to?
he does. And and he also helped me a lot with my technique and my form. My last coach wasn't as detailed about that. Never really wanted to see training videos and things like my current coach. So I was doing some things that weren't proper. My boyfriend was roommates with Joel Thomas. He's a IFBB Pro, open men's open, and they lived together for like 5 years. So Joel taught him a lot. So
Nice.
then he had, in turn has been helping me with form and things like that. But pushing me through those, last few reps that maybe I wouldn't have pushed myself through. Giving me a spot and helping, in that way that I wouldn't have normally been able to do on my own.
I find a good training partner can kind of help you figure out like the reality of your own personal reps in reserve scale. Like you
Yeah,
might think like, oh, I've got 1 rep in reserve, and they can help you figure out like actually you had 4 or 5.
right, right. Yeah,
Hugely
for sure.
valuable. If you can find a good training partner like that isn't a chatterbox and wastes a bunch of time, that's
Yeah.
what I have not been able to find in my life.
No, he doesn't. He actually, I'm probably worse about wanting to chat and catch up, on our day and talk about things. And he's like, "We're training. We're not talking about them right now." You know,
Perfect.
so he's definitely been really good for me in that regard. Yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
cool.
And I
If
have a
we
full-time job and kids, so I try to, I need to get in and get out. So he keeps me on task.
That was another thing. I mean, I saw on your Instagram, you're a full time dental hygienist as well. So
That's correct.
you are not one of these people who is an Olympian and oh yeah, I work in a gym, by the way. So I'm just there all the time anyway.
Right. Unfortunately. I'm
I feel
not
like
one of these.
not to take anything away from those people, but I feel like that is a slightly lower degree of difficulty if you work in a gym.
Yes, yes, and it allows you, I mean, I know a couple of the girls that are doing the Olympia and doing the Rising Phoenix. I heard them say that they've taken off the whole month before the show and they're gonna just, and I'm like, yeah, must be nice.
Must be
I
nice,
don't know about
man.
that life. It
No,
would
taking them.
definitely make it easier if you worked in a gym and you could train at a normal time and you didn't have to do it after working all day. I know, I don't want to really like think about it too much because it makes me sad. But I know that I would be a better bodybuilder if I didn't have a job, because I could train at 2 in the afternoon, not 6 and 7 o'clock at night after I've worked all day.
Fighting
You know,
crowds.
yeah, the energy level just isn't the same.
Yeah.
Even on the weekend when I can get a little bit more sleep, I go into the gym and it's always better than after work.
Well, talk about getting a month off. Like I didn't compete this year or last year, but I competed in 2021, which is the last time. And I'm just in a not a permanent off season, but an extended off season because I do need to grow a little bit. But even on show day, like I'm still answering texts from clients, like people getting a month off. I'm like, I would love a day off.
Right.
that would be a dream.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Um, if
So,
we look if we look back at this here real quick, um, that come up for you again?
yeah, but before,
Yeah. So this Sherry on the left here, you said that was your first year competing.
it was. And again, it's the same coach that I've always had. And the funny thing is I desperately wanted to be a figure competitor. I thought that's, I didn't understand that sometimes you have to compete in the division that your body shape is.
Yeah. Oh, that ship has sailed, Sherry.
So, well, the funny thing is when I first went in to meet with him, I told him I wanted to do bikini. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, he's like, you can't do bikini. Your shoulders are already entirely too big for bikini. And I'm like, oh, I thought you had to start at the bottom and work your way up. And he's like, no, he said, but if you want to do figure, we'll try figure. So as I leaned out, he was telling me that I needed to do women's physique. And I'm going, no, I don't have enough muscle for that. I can't do women's physique. And I insisted every show I did that year, I did both. I did figure and I crossed over and did women's physique. And obviously, at nationals, I got fifth in figure and I got first in women's physique. So
There's your decision right
there's
there.
my answer,
That's
right?
funny. So, special request at some point, maybe after the Rising Phoenix, I'll give you a little bit of leeway on this. I think you should do a social media post where you put on some heels and hit figure poses and some bikini poses, just as kind of like a pseudo what if kind of thing. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, the funny thing is when I was starting this whole journey, I was showing my son pictures of, like what I want to look like. And some women's bodybuilding pictures came up and I was like, I'll never look like that. I'll never have that much muscle. I'll never do bodybuilding.
And yet,
And here I am going to the Olympia in women's bodybuilding. Like, wow. Yeah.
so first year competing, how long had you been training prior to that?
Uh just about I mean, I've always worked out, been healthy, I did have a fat phase after my third child. I had a hard time getting the weight off. But when I started the bodybuilding journey, I was, pretty slender already. So it wasn't like a huge transformation, but I had probably been training in the gym for about a year before I decided I wanted to compete.
Okay. Okay. So
And
still a relative newbie for the most part.
yeah, yeah. And
Okay.
then we trained for about a year before I did my first show.
Okay.
And, I had a coach.
So the question, the rapid fire segment that I want to hit here is I'm looking at you at uh, the national show here, and then your first competitive season, and then coming back and then making the transition after your off season into women's bodybuilding from there. It's that time frame, that space, that gap. I want to dig in and kind of figure out, because here's, I mean, so you're already competing at a high level. You're doing well in pro shows, and then to be able to take it from there and to kick it up a notch to where you are now, like that's impressive, and that kind of mirrors like what I'm trying to do now, except I have a much more advanced training age because I've already been doing this for 25 years.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, how can I put on 15 pounds in an off season and a half or something like that? So let's dig in on this. When you're in the gym, you're focusing more on form, more on weight, or equal parts both?
It used to be weight when I first started. It was just how much weight can I push? How much weight can I move? Because I thought that's how you built muscle. And now my philosophy has changed. I definitely try to push as much weight as I can while maintaining the form. I'm much more intuitive to holding the form and not trying to ego lift and not trying to, just for the sake of going up another, uh, you know, notch on the weights. To I just make sure that my form is really good now. So that required me to lower the weight. And sometimes, it's hard to do because you think you're not progressing or you're not doing as much as you can. But I definitely have a more mind muscle connection than I ever used to. I understand that now, whereas I didn't at the beginning. I had a hard time.
No ego. Writing that down.
No
Okay.
ego. Yeah, I mean, for example, I think if I scroll way down on my IG page, I have a post of me doing leg presses, and I had like all the weights on the first run, and then I had some on the second, and I thought that I was really,
Some jackass sitting on top of the leg press too,
yeah.
probably.
But then I look at it and I'm like, I wasn't even, breaking parallel with my legs. I
Yeah.
didn't bring my, now I know I need to bring my legs all the way down to my chest. I need to get that full range of motion. It's easy to just kind of barely push the weight, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But to bring that all the way down, hold it for a second, and then push it back up, without that momentum, it's a big difference. So lowering the weight so that you can get the right form and you know, get the full, contraction, the full stretch. That's now what I focus on. So it's been better for my joints as I'm
Yeah.
getting older and more wear and tear on my body. But I'm
Tell me
still
about it.
growing. So it just shows you it's not always about how heavy you lift. We're not power lifters, right? We're
Right.
bodybuilders. So
So mind muscle connection, thinking about like execution. I think I would add onto that like making sure that the right muscles are moving the weight and that you're engaging them correctly.
yeah, yeah. I tend to be really trap dominant. And for years I was using my traps for everything. I really had to
Pretty
be
common.
conscious, yeah, and disengage that, in order to work other parts of my back and things like that I just
Yeah.
wasn't aware of when I first started. You know?
If I was in the gym training with Sherry and I'm like we're trading back and forth, I do a set, you're doing a set. If I'm watching you and I'm watching your face while you're doing a set of something, am I gonna like if I really look, am I gonna like see the gears turning, like you thinking about engaging stuff, or is it kind of automatic? You're in the moment, or are you like actively thinking about like get this cue right, full range of motion here?
Nowadays you won't see a whole lot because I shut my eyes, so I can focus. I get easily distracted by people and things, and
That's a
um,
great idea because I'm so distracted by people's bad form and stuff. That's one of my weaknesses in the gym is like, what is that person over there doing? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
right. So for me personally to really engage in that and think about what I'm doing, I shut my eyes. I mean, I still have ugly face going on because I'm working.
Can't help it.
Um, yeah, but that's how I stay focused.
I like it. You already talked about volume, how you're doing a little bit lower volume now. So like 2, maybe 3 working sets of something, and how many exercises on a given day on average?
Probably 6.
Okay. So still getting a fair bit of volume in there, but you got your warm up sets, et cetera. And are you a believer in back off
Once
sets?
I'm warmed up, like, if I've already done a lat exercise and I've warmed up, my next exercise, it's just going to be those 2, working sets.
Absolutely.
Waste, whereas before my programming was like 4 to 5 sets, no matter what, regardless,
And still 6 exercises.
Yes, yes. So we're talking like 2.5, 3 hour training,
Yeah.
every day.
Do you think there's, I mean, clearly like it worked to some level. So you think there is some value in that? It's just maybe that you have, it seems kind of strange to say, but maybe you've outgrown the usefulness of that kind of volume.
I think so. Yeah. And I just think as you mature, your muscle matures and you get more muscle, it it just doesn't take as much to build on that and to maintain that as it is when you're first developing.
And also as your brain gets more in cue with engaging stuff, it's like you become more efficient and you can get more work done with less volume.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
so.
Cool. And what's your like work rest protocol like? Are you like 3 days on, 1 day off, or something like that?
I used to be 3 days on, 1 day off, with my prior coach. Now I do 2 days. Like he has me doing a pull day, a push day, and then I take a rest. Then I do legs, and then I take a rest, and then and back to the push. That cycle.
Okay,
Um,
so 3 days on, 2 off, just non-consecutively
yeah,
in a
yeah.
5 day rotation.
The way he initially set it up, I can't remember. I don't remember how it was initially was, but I decided that I really needed that day. I think he had me doing 2 on 1 off, 2 on 1 off, but the way that rotated, sometimes it would be legs and pull day and then off. And then
Having that rest day before and after legs is kind of a nice little add-on.
yeah. So I asked if I could switch it up and do that because I was finding that I was so fatigued the day after doing legs that even if I was doing upper body, I just felt zapped still. I need
Missing some of the edge.
Yeah, and I really didn't feel the same. If I had back the day before legs, I was just worn out still. So this has really helped to have the day before and after legs off. That's been my focus this season, is to try to bring my legs up. And so that has really worked for me.
Nice, nice. Are you a big fan of body work?
I am. Yeah.
What do you do specifically?
Well, I have somebody that comes to the house and, he does different stretching maneuvers, the cupping, the scraping. Um, and I try to do it, fairly regularly. I see a chiropractor a couple of times a week as well. That's probably more job related than training. With
Being
an
a
actual
dental
job,
hygienist, being a dental hygienist is very asymmetrical
it is. It is.
because you're always like
So
turn the same way.
yeah, my neck is bent. I'm leaning in. And then I want to know like why the right side of my back is always hurting. It's because I'm constantly, and I try to be very ergonomic, and I try to sit with my posture upright, and I have special glasses that allow me to like look forward while looking down, so I
Mm.
don't bend my neck and things like that. But it's still, you're in a hurry. You're trying to just do your job. You're not thinking about it. So it's a lot of wear and tear on my body. My wrists are, strained a lot just from the constant repetitive motion with my hands. Um, but it is what it is. The chiropractor keeps me in, being able to do what I do for sure.
Nice, nice. I have one job related question for you, and that is on a scale of 1 to 10, what is the level of satisfaction that you get from operating a Cavitron?
Oh, it's probably like, especially when somebody really has bad teeth, it's like a 10. I equate it to like if you ever power washed, something,
Or like
power
vacuuming the
washing.
dirtiest floor you've ever seen?
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
see it all come up. It's the same way with the Cavitron. Yeah.
Yeah, I imagine like I can't deal with that. Like I can't do anything with teeth or anything. Like I have so much respect for you, for dentists, for orthodontists, endodontists, and like spending that much time in anybody's mouth is just like a big nope for me. But then it's like, man, I would like the opportunity to do some micro scale pressure washing every day. Like that sounds like it's got to be kind of satisfying.
Yeah, it is. It is.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been a dental hygienist for I think 13 years.
Okay.
My second career life. But no, I enjoy it. I need a job where I'm doing something. I could never sit behind a computer all day. I could never sit in a cubicle by myself. I'd probably fall asleep. Um, so it's nice to have, I have a different patient every hour to engage with, and it's the same job per se, but everybody's different. And I enjoy working with people. So it's, it's a good life work balance. I don't have to take any work home after I'm done. I'm done. I don't think about my job on the weekends. I don't, stress about it. So it's good.
Yeah, yeah, and plus you get to deal with a whole wide range of head cases. Like if I was in your chair, you'd be like, "Man, this guy is messed up. Holy cow!" Like he has got some anxieties that just have no bearing in reality.
And that's really common in the dental field. So I'm accustomed to it and used to it, and I have little tips and tricks on how to deal with people and their issues.
It's
But
one of those tips and tricks Xanax.
for some, it is.
That would be me.
But I have to say, it gets really hard when I'm this deep in prep. I
Oh
lose
God, I can't even imagine. Holy cow.
I lose a lot of patience and I lose a lot of compassion at
Patients
this point.
patients with a CE, not a TS, correct? Have you ever lost a patient in your chair?
No,
Okay. We're going to keep that
no.
streak alive. Uh,
But it definitely makes it a little harder when you're on edge like this. You know how it
yeah,
is when you're a
yeah.
week out. Yeah, and people are whining and complaining, and I just, I like have no sympathy.
They're like, walk a mile in my shoes,
Right?
dude.
Yeah, like you don't know what it's like to suffer.
Well, this is cool. I got my notes here for the Sherry Priami cheat codes for growth. So I'm going to work on implementing some of these for myself and
Okay.
see if I can put on some pounds in the next. I don't know. I'm gonna give myself maybe 6 months, and then I just need to shut up and pick a show and prep for it. So at some
You
point,
currently train by yourself. You don't have a training partner.
no, I haven't had a training partner in years. Everyone that I've ever had has either been somebody where I'm teaching them everything as we're doing it, which puts me in work mode because that's what I do all day
Right.
anyway, or just a chatterbox.
How long have you been competing?
My first show was 2012, and then I took 9 years off.
Okay.
9 years off where I was a full time coach and still training every day and still like kind of in prep mode, but just not actually getting up on stage. For me, I don't really enjoy show day. Show day
Oh,
is something that I have to kind of suffer through for the rest of it. So I would just as soon like spend 16 weeks getting ready, killing myself for this thing. All right, cool. Let's take some photos. All right, cool. Let's go eat. Like just skip the whole tan. And I'm also an introvert. So like backstage with a whole bunch of people, it's like, I'd rather not.
yeah.
So I have the perfect job for myself where I just sit at my desk and I work with clients online and there's minimal actual face-to-face interaction with people. So
How long have you been a coach?
for 12 years full time.
Okay. Wow. Good for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've been told that there are only a handful of people that actually get to make a living in the bodybuilding industry, and I think outside of you know maybe the top two or three Olympia competitors, I think it's all coaches and promoters, and that's it.
Yeah. It's not the athletes.
No, no. So I'm
But
lucky to be among
of course, I
those.
have. Yeah. And be able to do well in an industry you love. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, and also the podcast. I mean, this makes me no money at all, but it's a great opportunity to meet people like yourself and get your story, share that with everybody else. So, most of these podcast episodes, you are episode number 233, I think.
Okay.
Most of those have just been me rambling into a microphone for 40 to 60 minutes straight by myself. I do prefer interviewing people. It's just kind of hard to schedule people and, make them
Yeah.
get them to commit to come on. So thank you very
Yeah,
much.
no, it's not. Like I told you when you asked me, I mean, I just really always take the opportunity to, try to promote the sport, try to promote women's bodybuilding, for sure, because we're always sort of on the brink of our division. It's no longer at the Arnold and things like that. So, I think that it helps people to be able to connect to the athletes when they hear their story or learn a little bit about themselves. And if that encourages somebody maybe to take up the sport, it's always worth putting yourself out there for. So
We need more because at the local NPC shows, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the local Knox Classic show that was 5 weeks ago, there was nobody in women's bodybuilding. There was one women's physique competitor, and she had one leg. And she was in a one-legged ass-kicking contest because you could have had a whole stacked field up there, and she probably would have won anyway because she was in great shape. Yeah, but yeah, it's just there were I think 5-figure competitors in the whole show, and then
200 bikini girls.
60 bikini girls. Yeah. So, I mean, we need more representation in women's bodybuilding. We need good ambassadors for the division as well. And I put you in that category. People that work hard and are committed to it and show the good side of it, because I think it also, it has a reputation of being like, oh, if you're going to do women's bodybuilding, it has to be unhealthy. And
Right.
it's like anything can be, but you can take a healthier approach to anything.
Exactly. And, I have to say that switching divisions, I'm not doing anything any more risky than I did when I first started out. It's a fault. I mean, some women take it to a level that it can be unhealthy. Unfortunately, I think that's where the downfall of the division went to begin with. Women were pushing, and the outcomes were, they weren't looking very feminine, and they weren't looking very healthy, and nobody really wanted to see that, right? So I do think there's a new era in women's bodybuilding happening, a new look and a new kind of path that division's taking. So I hope that it encourages a lot of women to, a lot of the WPD girls could absolutely move up to women's bodybuilding. um, there's such a fine line right there,
There really is. I think it's a problem. I think there's a
too.
judging problem there where they need to be more clearly defined. Like if I look at you at the Vancouver show here, I'm like, women's physique, no,
Yeah.
no, like no. We're on the other side of that line now, and that's great. But I want to see more stuff like that where it's very obvious. And
Right.
I would love to see some of the really really big physique women get scored down because they're in the
Absolutely.
wrong category.
Absolutely.
And that, it's like, she's the biggest girl on stage. She got 8th. Yeah, because she's in the wrong category.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do, I know like Mela, she competed at one of the shows, and she's great. She was placing really well, and then she got like 11th, and it was basically a way. And same with Michaela. Michaela, was placing, really well, and then all of a sudden she wasn't, and they told her, it's time to move up. You've outgrown this division, and that's what they need to do with more girls, because whoever they're letting win or placing high, everyone's trying to get that look, right? I mean,
Yeah, it worked for them. That's the new standard. So that's what we're shooting for.
right.
Like, I'm not calling anybody out, but I don't remember what the show was recently, but I think it was Emily Schubert competed in women's physique and was clearly a bodybuilder,
So
but she won the
Emily,
show.
Emily has the same coach that I used to have.
Hmm.
And I have, we have been teammates or, the whole, these past 5 years. And so I've watched her whole progression. And I absolutely agree. Those are not women's physique legs, right?
No, no. And I mean, to be clear, the legs haven't been for a while.
Right.
Um, but also, like, I don't blame her for that at all. Like, that's a judging problem.
Yeah. But she did the Olympia, not, was it last year that
I
she did
think
the
so.
Olympia?
I think
And
so.
she came in at the bottom, and they told her that it's because she needed more size. So she spent the year off.
You got to be careful who you tell they need more size.
Right. So she took all last year off to get bigger. And then, so of course she's not going to jump to women's bodybuilding. She thinks she needs to get bigger for women's physique.
Yeah.
And then she placed second, to Natalia in 2 shows. So I, I do think that she needs to bring her upper body up to be more women's bodybuilding. She needs a bigger back and bigger arms, in relation to her legs. But she does not have a what should be a woman's physique look. I mean, that's women's
No.
body.
Yeah, and I remember I had this conversation on the podcast by myself last year after the Olympia, and just looking at the size of some of the physique competitors. I'm like, geez, Louise, like, where are we taking this category?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and you look back at, like, Juliana in the first first few years of like the physique Olympia, and you look at her now and be like, she would be a did not place at this point. And I get that everything evolves over time, but like, man, that has things developed quickly.
yeah, yeah. And like you said, that's a judging issue. They really need to be more, strict about the criteria. The same thing with the conditioning, which blows my mind. Like I said, when they in 2019, when I didn't come in conditioned, it's because they said it should be a softer, you should still have separation. You should still, be muscular, but there should not be graininess, hardness, striations. But who's winning? All the girls with the striated glutes in
Yeah.
women's physique,
Yeah. So you're rewarding the people that ignore that completely. Just be like, all
Right.
right, cool. I'm going to come in peeled to the bone. Oh, I won. Cool.
Yeah. So it really makes, I mean, I feel bad for coaches because how do you know what the look is for that year, right? I mean, they're constantly
I tell you
changing.
what you do. You grab a pair of six-sided die and you roll them and
Hope for the
you
best, right?
cross your fingers and pray. And I
Yeah.
tell you what, it's no different in bikini, really. I had one client who's an OCB pro, and she did a couple of shows. And at one of them, the feedback that she got from the judging panel was, you need to come in 5 pounds leaner or you're 5 pounds too lean, like from the same panel at the same show. I'm like,
And how,
what do you do with
what's
that?
5 pounds, right? And
Yeah.
5 pounds where,
Yeah, like, should I just amputate below the knee on one leg or what? That'll drop me 5 pounds, maybe seven even. It's like, what
Yeah,
do you do with that? And she asked me, she's like, what do you make of this? I'm like, I make of this like, we're going to make you happy with your physique, and
right,
eventually there's going to be a judging panel that agrees with this.
right,
And because you are in your skin 364 days, 23 hours, and 45 minutes out of the year, and the judges care for 15 of those minutes. Like,
exactly.
who
And that's
do
what
we
people
want to
keep
make
asking
happy?
me. How big you gonna get? How big you gonna get? You're gonna grow and be, 200 pounds in your off season. And I'm like, no, like I don't want to walk around 200 pounds in my off season. Like, I don't think I could get up the flight of stairs at 200 pounds. I have to do what's comfortable for me on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
And if the judges like it, great. And if they don't, then, eventually I guess I'll just stop competing if it gets to the point where, you're not doing well at it. But I'm
Yeah.
not gonna become something that I don't find comfortable living with every day, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I think that there's a level of curiosity. Like, people kind of want to know what your motivations are. Like, are you doing this because you want to win shows, or are you doing this because you just want to be as big as you possibly can?
I think everybody's motivation is different. I
Yeah.
mean, for me, I like show day. I like competing.
You're a weirdo.
Um, I think it's fun. And for the most part, I do it, anything that I do 100%, no matter what. So, I mean, I want to win always. I want to win shows, but I do it more, I think, for me, it just keeps me accountable, keeps me, I think if I just trained and never competed, I might grow bored a little bit with it. I like having something to look forward to, the anticipation. I like
Yeah.
the progress. I like to be able to, and even when I'm done competing, I told my boyfriend this. I said, I'm still gonna like cut and and go through those phases for vacations or photo shoots or whatever. I'm not gonna just stay off season big forever. I want to cycle and see, what it is that developed and how things look. And I think that's the fun part for me. It's disclosing what you worked hard on to see the changes and the differences. And
Yeah.
when you have to get dieted down that far to tell, it's like, well, shit, I might as well do a show then, right?
might as well. Well, and that's a big part of it too. I think is I don't think anybody really does well in bodybuilding that doesn't have some trace of like an addictive personality. And just the fact that you're saying like, oh yeah, I'd keep doing this dietary cycling, et cetera, even after I was done competing. I'm like, that's a freak show thing to say. Like that's what most people are looking to leave behind once they're done with competing. So I mean that kind of shows like how you're wired, and also I would say why you're successful at it too.
I do think that in order to be a successful bodybuilder, you have to have a level of craziness for sure.
100%. And the more crazy you are, oftentimes the better you'll do.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. And I completely understand why majority of people couldn't and wouldn't want to do it. It's not mainstream for a reason. But they'll never know that satisfaction either. The satisfaction of knowing what you can put your body through, the satisfaction of knowing how hard you can push yourself. Um,
And how ridiculously you looked once you got there too.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
I look like a cartoon or like a cartoon character when I go to step on stage. It's fascinating. The whole process is fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm.
To just watch your body change and the things that happen and how these small little grams of carbs can instantly, make you look better and different and
Or a little
things I
more or
never would
less
have.
water.
Yeah, it's just the whole process of it I enjoy. So I don't know. I don't know how long I'll do it. I don't know how long, I'll my body will let me do it, but as long as I'm having fun, I'm just gonna keep at it and see how it goes.
No plans on Rising Phoenix or Olympia being your last shows.
No, no, I do. I no, I do plan on. I shouldn't say it out loud yet because you never know how. I
Great.
mean,
Turn up your
if somebody,
microphone. Turn up your headphones, everybody. Listen in.
I mean, if I place top three at the Olympia this year, you better believe I'm doing the Olympia next year. But if I don't, right now my plans are to take all of next year off and just train. I do want to really bring my legs up more. Um, my son is graduating high school, so I want to spend some time with him this year. I want to take him on a cruise, and next spring, and just enjoy life with him until before he goes off to college. And just like this has been a long year for me to prep for a show in April and then turn around and prep for these two shows at the end of the year. I've never done that before, so I just feel like I've been a perpetual prep all year.
Does make for a long calendar year, yeah.
It does. So it's not that I think I need a break mentally or physically from it all. I just think I want to enjoy my life a little bit. So
I think
my
that's fair and reasonable.
yeah. So I do plan on being back on stage in 2025.
Nice. Wow, 25.
I know,
It's
right?
like it's like wow, that's like a Blade Runner year or something, isn't it? Like that seems like so far off in the future.
I know, I know. When I see it, I'm like, what? And then it really is hard to take a year off. When I took the year off before, sit and watch everybody going to the shows, and you get that like, oh, I'm missing out.
I
And
even felt that a little bit in 2020 leading into 2021, and that's why I came back. I'm like, okay, I do kind of miss it a little bit. And now it's like I did my show. I'm like, all right, I'm good for a bit. But I kind of
right.
feel a little bit of the itch right now. My current coach is kind of like, you should think about a show. What are you thinking next year? What are we going to do? So I'm like, all right, I'll think about this.
Yeah, you just have to kind of play it by ear sometimes and see how your life is going too. I mean, prep takes everything out of you and it takes all of your attention. So I don't think a lot of people realize in order to do well what that entails. And you have to be in a space where you can commit full full force to that. So, like I said, I've got too much going on with my son this coming year that I want to focus on. So,
Yeah,
uh,
that's a smart move. I mean, my wife is a teacher, so she has summers off, and so that's kind of like, hey, if we're gonna go on a vacation somewhere, we should do that. And so I'm like, all right, so summer is not gonna be competing time,
yeah.
just because I'm not gonna take a trip and try to stay in prep through that. I could, but it's
Oh,
like I'd rather enjoy the trip. It's kind of
right.
like an either or situation.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I would never take a vacation where I couldn't eat and drink and enjoy myself,
I know, right?
It's pointless.
um,
So
how can people find you online, Sherry?
they can go to my Instagram. It's S Priami underscore IFBB Pro. That's really the main place. I do have a Facebook page, but I try to keep that a little bit more family oriented, and I don't go on there as much. It's more for my kids' school and stuff. So finding me on IG. Is
Not on the TikToks.
I don't do the TikTok. No, I don't have a YouTube channel. I wish I did, but I don't have time for that, you
I mean,
know.
as you can see in the background here, that's my additional my B camera back there. So I have started a videography business just as kind of a side hustle, just because I enjoy doing it.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, like managing a YouTube channel is so much fucking work. Oh my god,
Yeah, I
it's
mean, because not only is it filming it, right? Then you got to edit it and you got to, put it all
yeah.
together. So, I mean, I could never do that on my own. I would literally have to hire a camera person to follow me around. And
That's who I am. That you would hire me. So
so it's
unfortunately, you'd have to pay to fly me down there and all that too, and it gets prohibitively expensive really fast. So those kind of
yeah.
jobs are not super common.
Well, if this sport paid us more, maybe I could afford to do that. But
I know, right?
all the funds I have just go to just being able to compete. So
Just sign that check straight over to Publix or whatever.
yeah, exactly. And I have kids that I'm still trying to raise, and like I said, a full time job. And maybe people would be interested in seeing how that all plays in with my bodybuilding, but that would be very intrusive to their lives and to everything
Yeah,
I've got
I tell
going
you
on.
what, there's never a lack of appetite for training footage. I mean, people will watch that stuff just on a loop, on a playlist on YouTube all day long, like top level pros training footage. I mean, yeah, especially if you're like mic'd up and talking a little bit between the sets, like that stuff is gold. It sells itself.
So my boyfriend is really good with recording me and training and things like that, or posing. So I'll put some of that on my IG. I do have an OnlyFans account, but it's really mainly training. It's not. I don't do nudity there. There are some more risque photos that I will post that I would not put on IG.
Hmm.
Um, but no, no nudity. It's mainly training, and it's mainly what people want to see. They want to hear me grunting. They want to see me sweating. They want to see me working.
There you
Um,
go.
so if you want to see that, then you can pay for that.
That
I
that is a marketing champion's attitude right there.
I don't put that on IG very much, and I one of the main reasons is because I also don't want to listen to people critiquing my form and this, and like there's always some troll that's gonna like say something. So
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't have a huge following or anything like that, but I've gotten to the point now where I get trolls commenting, and like every post is like steroids, or it's like where's your dick? It's so small. I'm like, oh my god, you people! It's a posing video. We please stop acting like we're seven?
yeah, I
Oh
get
my
a
god,
lot of hate on my page, on my IG page, but I just block and delete, block and delete. You
that's all
know,
you can do.
I think it's really hard as a female bodybuilder. We get a lot of insecure men. It's always the men that either don't have a picture posted on their IG, or they've got like one picture of their dog and nothing else. They've got 37 followers, but yet they're, going to tell me how horrible and ugly and, just like,
Yeah,
who are you? You know?
that's
Um,
like the internet troll starter pack right there.
yes. They're the ones that are in your DMs every day. Hi, hi, hello, beautiful, hello. You don't respond. And then all of a sudden you get, well, you're a bitch and and I'm
Oh,
like, what?
I get those all the time.
Just get a life, move on. But it just comes to putting yourself out there.
That's the thing. I mean, you're highly visible. You do kind of stand out in a crowd. If somebody sees you at Costco, they probably never seen anybody like you before.
Right,
So, it
right.
kind of comes with the territory of being, different,
It does. And,
intentionally different. Also,
yes. And I'm old enough and wise enough to know that, no one's opinion matters except for my own. And so it really doesn't bother me at all. But
and whatever they say, it's about them. It's not about you.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's
But
awesome.
so yeah, so just trying to put stuff on my OnlyFans account and trying to stay relevant somewhat on IG, like that's a lot of time in itself. I don't have time for anything else.
Especially when you already have a full time
I
job.
respect the yes. And if I had a way that, I maybe was training at the gym and could have people come in and film me, maybe if my job was different, you know, that would be feasible, but it's not. So,
We deal with
you
the hand
know,
we're dealt.
Yes, it's fine.
Well, I would say you've been dealt a good hand and you've done good things with it. So, thank you very much for taking the time. This ran way longer than I expected it to, but we just kind of
No
we got
problem.
we got into
Sorry.
it. So, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. So, stick around for a second. I'm going to say farewell to the audience. Thanks for listening, and thank you, Sherry.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.